Welcome to track 5, 92.2% market share. This is Exchanging Demands with Peter Haney.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm not talking directly into a microphone. Can you hear me out the back? Can you flail your arms if that's okay? Yeah, awesome. I don't like talking into microphones generally. I did it once when I was speaking at an opera house, and it was just weird, and I kept tilting my head down, and volume was very inconsistent, so this works better for me. But yeah, if I need to start talking to the microphone at any point, please just flail your arms at me and I'll start doing that. Okay, so yeah, let's get started. So, the introduction. Let's get into who am I? This horrible Australian person in front of you, you know. Hopefully you can understand what I say. I've had some problems with bartenders mostly. But there we go. My name is Peter Haney. I'm a lecturer from Edith Cowan University in Perth, Western Australia. I teach a few different courses, primarily forensics based, so network forensics, introductory computer forensics, some network security, and just recently I've had an ethical hacking class approved, and that was a really big deal for me. I'm not sure how it is here, but in academia, getting anything hacking approved is a big problem. So that was good, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now, I'm a researcher. I publish on many of the same topics: forensics, NetSec, data mining, these sorts of things. It's very interesting to me. So there we go. Hacker. I break stuff. Breaking stuff's fun. I'm sure most of you would agree with that. That's why you're here. Pen tester, so yeah, I'm a white hat sellout. I get paid. It's good. And finally, I'm a PhD candidate, about 2 months away from completion, publishing on, embedded device forensics. So lots of forensic stuff, lots of embedded device stuff, which lends me well to playing with phones and reversing things and all that side of the coin. So, all very interesting, I hope. So, interest in general. Like I said, I like breaking things. Nothing really does it for me as much as that. I like finding stuff, I like tearing it apart, I like finding out how it works, and I like bending it to my will. Okay, I love laser tag. Alright, yeah, so I play laser tag every week when I'm back home. On a team, we've been placing first most of the time. Now I'm not there, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, a couple of our team members recently played in the international laser tag finals. There are international laser tag tournaments organised with governing bodies. Now you know. And cats. I love my cats. And here's a picture I thought I'd share with you. We have Alice on the left, and Ada on the right, two Burmese. Cats are awesome. Alright, so just before I get started, and I was trying to figure out a place in my talk to put this, sort of a clarification on what this talk is, and I really couldn't find a place for it, so I just thought I'll put it right at the beginning. What I'm talking at is, it's based around remote wiping mobile phones. So Android, iOS, and Windows Phone were tested. Android and iOS worked, Windows Phone didn't. But this is not a vulnerability in Exchange. I wouldn't even call it a vulnerability on the phone. It's more just some shonky implementation stuff. It's not an exploit. It's, you know, so you're not getting mad O-days here. You'll get something that'll work, but yeah, I don't consider there to be a bug or an exploit as such, but there's some code that works and phones get wiped. All right, so with that done, let's get started. All right, so the story. I like narratives. I like talking about how things come about, and this is going to be no different. So prepare yourselves for, 20, 30 minutes of me talking about how I came to the point of writing this up, testing it out, and seeing how it goes. So, the setting was some post-pen test drinks with clients. This is the Friday afternoon, you've handed in the draft report, the client's looking over it, they're asking questions, they're pretty confused about what anything you've told them means, like looking at this, the technical document, the draft, before, they see what's going on. And this is the question that came up. So if you own our Active Directory server, what exactly can you do? All right. This seems like a pretty obvious question, with a pretty obvious response. A lot, okay? Stuff's going to go badly, for them. But so we said, you control the users, you push policy updates, you break things, you just basically own everything under the control of that AD. All right? Then it came up, well, with Exchange, if we took control of an Exchange server, we could remotely wipe devices. Maybe every device in a corporation. That would really ruin people's day. And, all right, so sure, if we get to that sort of level of control in an organization, we could certainly send out wipe commands to all the managed devices and, everyone from the CEO to the guy kept checking his company email because, obsessive at the bus stop, I don't know. But they're all going to get their stuff wiped and they're not going to be happy. But then we thought, well, do we really need Exchange for that? Do we really need to have control of these centralized servers? It's all network-based. It's pushing it out somehow. Surely we can emulate that. Surely we can duplicate that functionality ourselves and say, well, maybe we don't control the server. Maybe we're just a dude connected to some shared Wi-Fi at an airport lounge. Or maybe we're just the guy with the horribly named Wi-Fi. There's an AP in here called connecting to this is a bad idea. Please don't connect to that at the moment. If you do, don't connect to it with your phone, please. And if you do, it's not my fault. It's fine. All right. So, do we need Exchange for it? Maybe we just send the commands directly. And yeah, we'll try that out. So rather than dealing with the Exchange side of it, which, it's trivial, you mash the buttons, stuff gets erased, we're going to try and do it, but... And there's always a but. And really, thinking about it, it's too simple. It couldn't possibly work, right? Just saying, let's duplicate the command, send them to the phones, and try and wipe it without having control of a centralized server. There's got to be something. I mean, really, it's... it couldn't be that easy. Surely SSL would prevent it if nothing else. So we've got SSL there, at the very least, we're probably not going to be able to get a trusted certificate for any random connecting to our shonky server. Surely SSL on the client application or on the mobile device at the very least would prevent us from just receiving a connection and saying, please erase yourself now. Okay, so that's where it went down. And then maybe on top of that, there might be some sort of secure exchange, shared secrets, something else. Surely there's something, some sort of pre-shared value. I don't know. So I consulted an expert. This guy here, a fellow by the name of Brett Turner. Works at our university, teaches the Microsoft admin courses as well as the Linux stuff. So he does both, which I think's interesting. So I had a chat with him, and his conclusion was that it should work fine as long as SSL is disabled. Okay, well that's not very good. That was not promising. Yeah, that was a bit disappointing. But hey, why not? Let's just try it out anyway. We'll see if it works. If it works, great. If not, I'm sure there's someone without SSL turned on in their email. So I found out later it is so incredibly hard to disable SSL on an Exchange server. Yeah. Well, let's get started. Let's have a look into it. Let's see what we can do. And we'll start putting this stuff together. And yeah, so we're going to get some packet dumps of a legitimate remote wipe operation. So step one, obviously, let's install Exchange. So I work for a university. We've got lots of licenses thrown at us by Microsoft, pretty much everything. So that was easy enough to get a hold of. And I just thought, well, we'll install it, we'll take the packet dumps, I'll disable SSL at the start so I can just see what all the data is, and then I'll implement SSL afterwards. Okay, so got started, found ourselves a spare server and thought, Exchange can't be that hard to install, right? I've done postfix, I've done sendmail. I'm a Linux kind of guy. I'm not good at using Windows, but I thought, it's Windows, it's point and click, right? Surely that's going to be okay. So I got the installer, it's like 5 gig or something, and went to start installing it, and first error I got was you must populate your forest. That's all it said. You must populate your forest. And it did this after about 3 hours of installing. Told me that and then rolled it back. So after some Googling, I hit a few more brick walls like that. And well, yeah. Exchange is really hard. I understand why there are vendor certifications for this stuff now. I think you maybe actually need that training. Like it's not just a junket possibly. I don't know. Or maybe you need to read a book. I don't know, man. It's not for me. I'm not a Windows guy, so crap. That's not going to work too well. Thankfully, I work in a university, and, I mentioned this guy. He teaches people how to, run Windows stuff and how to maintain Windows servers. And, that's great. He was too busy to help me. Uni tabbing, it occupies your time pretty heavily. But I had some students laying around. Okay, and this is, I'm just going to go off on a tangent here. In Australia recently, there was a university-level ethical hacking competition. Anyway, the two guys on the left and the two guys on the right were the team we fielded, and they were the first students to go through my ethical hacking unit. Pretty good guys. They came second place out of all the Australian universities completing, so I'm pretty good with the result. The first prize was a trip to Blackhat. I'm not sure if any of the winning team are in here. They're probably at the bar. I would be. A student, free trip to the US? No, I'm sorry. That's happening. And second place, of course, they gave them each what every hacker wants, an iPad. Really? Like for a hacking competition, they thought, you know what? iPads. No. All right. Yeah, so not one of them still had it like 2 hours after receiving their prize. It was all sold pretty quick. But anyway, so these guys, a few of them, even have those Microsoft certifications, and in just about a day and a half, they managed to get Exchange set up and working the way I wanted, and with all the SSL disabled and everything else. So we've got a completely insecure deployment of Exchange in a configuration that no one would ever recommend, and it really is hard to disable the SSL. It's like 6 places you've got to disable it. Anyway, it happened. Thanks, students. All right, so we did some packet sniffing after that. And what comes out? Well, after digging around for a while, we managed to isolate the requests responsible for any type of ActiveSync request. And here it is, and we can see a few things here. So, it's a post request. I've just dotted out the command because it was really long and wouldn't fit on my slide, but that's not interesting anyway, so it's fine. We can see the device type, the content type. Yeah, vnd.ms-sync wbxml. So it's a binary XML format, and that was helpful because Microsoft published really good docs. Just pulled up a PDF, the entire protocol description. Really, really useful. We can see it uses basic auth. Okay, as long as it's SSL employed, that's not going to be a problem, right? So that should be okay. So we can see this stuff here. We can see the request. Now, this request could have been for any sort of ActiveSync thing, but what's interesting here is the response. So after a wipe command has been issued from the server, and only after a wipe command has been issued, or there's been a policy update, or there's been something else like that, we see this HTTP error 449, retry after sending a provision command. And this is a good error. And the devices will keep making their requests. Maybe they're trying to check their email, maybe they're trying to update a calendar item. I don't know, it can be lots of different things, but the server will just keep saying HTTP error 449, HTTP error 449. And eventually the device will take the hint, give up, and say, I should probably send a provision command. And then we see our provision command. So, his final suggestion, you can see in CMD at the top of that post, the CMD equals provision. So it's requested provisioning, and this looks like it's just requesting a new policy push. To be honest, I learned the bare minimum I needed for this, so yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it says provision me a new policy. Auths again, we get it, we push it through. Sweet. It's all good, and we can see there's some stuff in the actual request body there. MS, EAS, provisioning, WBXML. It's yeah, whatever. All right. So this is the server's response. Okay, and it's a binary protocol, so again, this is not really helpful, but it is the response, and this is the response that is involved in telling the device to erase itself. So this gets hit, and the device starts erasing itself. This is very, very useful. So it's a binary protocol. We probably want to look at it in hex rather than trying to examine it, in ASCII and not really understanding anything. I'm not going to try and go through all this individually. That's a waste of everybody's time. But what I can say is if we decoded it and we said, okay, this is binary XML, The idea is it's all efficient, it's all compacted down, we've got using as little data as possible, and I can understand that. It's a great idea, especially on a mobile device where you've only got so much bandwidth, you want stuff to be fast and so on. So we use that. Now, up here we have our decoded data essentially. So this is just me looking at the spec and typing it up and saying this is what I would imagine it would look like if it were actual regular XML. There's no filter to translate it back and forward, it's just, it exists in binary, but this is a bit more readable and it works well for my purposes. So we can look up here, we've got the policies tree, we've got a policy being pushed, we've got a policy key, hopefully most of you can see it up there, it's just a big number. And this is where I was thinking, and I was like, possibly this is the sort of shared secret thing I thought was going to happen, and this is maybe, if I don't know the right policy key, maybe the device won't erase itself. Well, we'll talk about that later. But, there's other policies we can push. So if we didn't want to just erase the device, we could essentially, set alphanumeric passwords to be required. The most evil one, I sort of thought, for just annoying people rather than wiping phones, is this maximum inactivity device time lock in milliseconds. If you knock that down to like 1 millisecond, that's incredibly cruel and just kind of funny, or even just, yeah. I think there's a lot of potential for just being mean here. And there was other stuff like, forcing the device to permanently disable Wi-Fi until a new policy push came along. And I was sort of thinking on a Wi-Fi only iPad or something like that, that could break a lot of functionality. So there's a lot of cool stuff. And if you read the Microsoft spec, what is it? It's the Active Sync WAP Binary XML Protocol specification. Yeah, if you want the doc or references, just bother me afterwards. But it's a really good spec and it's got absolutely everything listed in there. You could potentially do some really mean stuff to a device if it was silly enough to accept commands like this from just any random person. Okay? Which surely, like I said, it can't be that easy. Alright. Now, what I've chosen for this talk and what I'm trying to, I'm going to hopefully do for my demo, I actually had a pretty big problem. I've been in the speaker room for like the past 3 hours trying to get a video of the iPhone and the Android both erasing themselves side by side. And it's like one would do it and then the other would do it like 5 minutes later and I couldn't get the recording. So I don't have a video recording. This demo goes well or it doesn't. I'm not thrilled about that, but what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and do the remote wipe demo. I can pretty much promise you that at least one of them is going to erase itself, so hopefully 2. We'll go for 2. But this big remote wipe thing up there, it's 1 hexadecimal character, 0C, that actually is that symbol. And this is the part of it which is responsible for saying, hey, erase yourself now. And the source code for it, which you can look at in Android, is actually really, really good. And hopefully you'll see it in the demo. If not, I'll make a point of it later. But that's essentially what happens. And we're going to try and bring that in, and we're going to develop a proof of concept, which you'll see, and hopefully it'll all work really, really good. And my tenses are shifting around all over the place because I've been trying to do this as a narrative. So when I say we will, it's done, you'll see it, yeah, whatever. Okay, so structure. I thought it would be good to sort of get an overview of how Exchange, IIS, ActiveSync, and OWA fit together, because they're all these sort of unique pieces. And it took me a little while to sort of figure it out. It's like, okay, so it's HTTP, it's IIS, it's talking an ActiveSync protocol, but there's all these different components that sort of became apparent when I was trying to set up the Exchange server. And I've checked with someone who does understand this stuff, and he said, my diagram is really crap, but it's pretty much spot on. So let's hope that's right. If it's not, please correct me. So the idea is Exchange is this backend, which in our case is being accessed by IIS, and then essentially you've got 2 sub sites. You've got your ActiveSync site essentially and your OWA site. I know the word isn't site, I can't remember what it is in Microsoft land, but it's something. And we've got our ActiveSync client, so our mobile phones, and that's the best Vizio mobile phone I could find. Anyway, I'm sure I don't have the latest image set. I'm sure there's a smartphone image in there. I couldn't find it. And your web browser accessing OWA. So you've got these different things and fit together. And you might have lost a device once and logged in through OWA and found the option under options and wiped your own phone. Or maybe you can do that afterwards for fun. Just to get an idea, how many of you use Exchange on your mobile devices? Okay? Hands up Android. Okay, iOS, so iPhone, iPad, that sort of stuff. Cool, Windows Phone? You guys are going to be smiling at the end of this. Okay? Alright, so we've got good penetration of Exchange being deployed across various devices. So we've got a good set of people here. This is going to be good. Alright, so just having a closer look at that policy, because I find it really interesting, and there's a lot more. So passwords required, password recovery enabled, on or off, device encryption enabled. So can we force a device to encrypt itself? We could potentially disable them from receiving attachments, set really huge password length requirements, that inactivity time device lock, like write down. Maximum failed attempts, set it to 1 with a lockout time of a millisecond. Yeah. You could choose to render a device unusable pretty much without wiping it if you so chose to. There's a lot of configuration option here, but that's okay because it's only available to the authorized administrators within your organization, and they wouldn't dare mess with you in this manner. I'm sure there's a lot of admins in this audience who are like, I'm going to mess with these guys so bad when I get back to the office. Alright, so if we're going to deploy this, we need some sort of man-in-the-middle condition. We need to somehow say, well, this is a server-side thing. We've seen the request that comes in. We receive the request, and then we respond with that 449 error. We do that provisioning stuff, but this all means we have to intercept that connection in the first place. Okay, we're not connecting to the device. We're waiting. So we need to establish some sort of man-in-the-middle state. Wi-Fi is cool. It's easily accessible. I'm aware that there's, some GSM tomfoolery available that you could possibly do it over that stuff. I'm not too sure how it works in data. I know voice and SMS is pretty much broken over GSM. I'm not sure how data's going, so I'm going to focus on Wi-Fi. You could use ARP poisoning. I'm going to go like the little pineapple device. How many of you are familiar with the pineapple? Yeah, a good number. Cool. So for those of you who aren't, it's just a nice little embedded box, runs OpenWRT with some fancy software in it that just serves to really mess with people. So the whole thing is it listens for probes for wireless networks that might be saved on your mobile phone or other device, and it just responds with, yeah, that's me, no matter what it's looking for. So if you've got a saved network, you're pretty much going to connect to this guy automatically. So that's why I chose it for my deployment example, and those features are turned off. It's just the one network at the moment. I've disconnected the antenna, so hopefully you guys can't connect to it. We'll see how it goes. But this is the route I took, but this is not a talk on man-in-the-middling Wi-Fi. Like, just Google that. I'm sure you can find a whole bunch of YouTube videos by 11-year-old kids on how to do that stuff. It's pretty easy. Your cafe, your airport lounge, just plug in some sort of hostile AP, pineapple, just call it free Wi-Fi, whatever. You can man-in-the-middle a connection, I'm sure. If not, I'm sure there's other talks about man-in-the-middling stuff somewhere around here or DEF CON. So, our targets. Target selection was the big three: Android, iOS, and Windows Phone. So these are the ones we tested. Okay, so how are these things going to go? Well, we'll see, I'm an Android user. A couple of my students were Windows Phone users, and a couple of them were iOS users with their iPhones and things like that. And like I said, my students are great. That when I said I wanted to try and erase their devices, they're just like, okay, yeah, good guys, really good guys. All right, so the dance. Let's see how this thing connects. Let's see how it all goes together, and let's try and do some wiping. Let's try and erase some devices. So we need to accept a condition, accept a connection to start with. So step one, the request. We're going to use a shonky, like the worst self-signed SSL certificate I could imagine. At the start, I sort of thought, all right, I'm going to try and do this properly, or at least as properly as I can do. I'm going to, on receiving that connection, look at the domain it's looking for, automatically generate a self-signed certificate where all the details match, maybe even connect out to the real server and get it so every field matches, just try and make it look as legit as possible. And then I realized I'm lazy. I'm going to try and do the minimum I can. So this one's for, you can't really see the dot, this is my self-signed root certificate for lols.lols. Okay, and this is what I tested every device with. And the cool thing is, I did not feel the need to go through and do this properly after the results. So this is my lols.lols, my self-signed, my really, really dodgy SSL certificate, which I'm going to listen with, and this is what I'm going to use to accept connections. And these devices were all connected to either my testing exchange server, which had a regular self-signed certificate where all the details did match. This was generated by Exchange during install. So this is the default self-signed certificate. Now, in our testing, in our surveys of small to medium businesses around Perth, WA, I can't say it's the same everywhere. We found that after talking to 120 small to medium, so 0 to 100 employees, there was one organisation in that category which had a proper CA issued certificate. The rest of them just had the default generated self-signed stuff. So a lot of them use self-signed. So one of our test cases was our mobile devices were connected to a server with that configuration, and the other test case was our devices were connected to a Exchange server with a proper CA issued certificate. So we thought we'd have the spectrum. We'll try both, see if there's a difference. Okay. So, next step. We're going to send HTTP error 449. We learned about HTTP error 449. This is the one that says it's time to request a policy update. So they're going to send this. We're going to send this request off. It's going to hit the phone, and hopefully, if all goes well, it'll go, "Yep, I need a policy update." To be honest, none of us really thought it would work, but yeah. After some debugging, all of the phones we tested really wanted the date in this header to be somewhere near accurate. Beforehand, I just had a hard-coded date from the first time I intercepted the packet, but it didn't like that, so substituted in some current time in the completely non-standard format for what it was getting otherwise, but that didn't seem to bother it too much. So we send a HTTP error 449. And step 3, we send our policy push containing the wipe command. And that's, it's not that far, I'm sure. That's this guy, essentially. Now, this contains the same HTTP header, okay, with a date and everything else. I didn't change the date. Like, in this one, I didn't update the date. I just literally have a byte array filled with this content. Didn't change a thing. I just used the policy push from, my first run of testing. Like I said, lazy. And if something really lazy works, that's probably more interesting. I would have refined it if I had to. I like to think I would have at some point. All right, so we send a policy push containing that wipe command, and we celebrate. And we have our drink, and hopefully everything works out. Now, when we first did this, we were sort of looking at the packet dumps, looking at the output from our Python proof of concept, and just going, well, why isn't this working? And yeah, it was pretty late at that point, so it was me and one of my PhD students still in the lab having beers. Anyway, as I turned to get a beer, I turned back and my phone's erasing itself. So I can, here's the funny, it works in at least one case. And there's a few cases in which it works, but all right, it's demo time. Now, these slides I prepared before I failed a recording of video. So yeah, don't cheer until it works, but let's hope it works. So 1 minute, I'll just make sure my phones are turned on. Okay. Okay, it's turned on and is connected to my shonky Wi-Fi network. That's good. All right. All right, and this guy is also turned on and connected to the shonky Wi-Fi network. Now, you're not going to be able to see a whole ton on the display because I didn't think this through too well. But you'll be able to see enough to go, hey, that's erasing itself. All right, so here we go. Okay, so if I'd thought this through enough to even, just when they said, hey, do you need any other equipment, document projectors or cameras or anything like that, if I'd thought it through enough to say, yeah, you wouldn't have such a bad quality video here, but you do. So that's how it's going to be. All right, so there we go. I'm going to start up my Python script, Nuka-Cola SSL edition. I'm a big fan of the Fallout series. And, having just finished New Vegas and being here, I thought, it's Nuka-Cola. I love that stuff, you know, nuking the phone. I'm sure you can figure it out. All right, so that's running. Now, we can sit here and wait for these phones to check their email, or I can, you know, wake them back up and press the damn email button. Now, here we go. Mail. You can't see anything at all. No, the iPhone's doing what it was doing before. We're going to leave this here and see if eventually it gets the other request, but the Android phone, you know, this guy's pretty reliable. I'll unlock this guy. Oh, crap. All right, so it's really not... Okay, I've got a screenshot. It just erased itself. You know, so there it is on the bootloader screen. So it just hit its, you know, 5-minutely. I'm going to check my email, and now it's rebooting. I'm just going to hold it here. Now you can see it's doing a factory reset. Yeah, now it's going back in again, and it's going to reinitialize all the default Google packages, and you know, so it'll be doing that for a while. And I'd do it again so you can see, but it takes about 40 minutes for this thing to restore, which is why I didn't get too many shots of recording that video. So that's fine. Yeah, the iPhone's just acting up a little bit. But I took screenshots of the iPhone earlier because I wasn't planning on doing a live demo with the iPhone. And then I just thought, I've got them both here. I'll try doing them side by side. But, you know, hey, and this is me again. What? There we go. All right, so we saw Android have... Thank you. Thanks. What I promise I'll do in the next couple of days, you'll see my website at the end. I'll record a proper video so you can see it rather than just going, oh, damn it, too late. Yeah. So there we go. What are the actual results here? So I mentioned we did 2 tests with each platform. Now, what we have is if the server uses a self-signed certificate and it's Android, it's done. There is no user interaction. And what I wish you could have seen is when the Android phone starts erasing itself, just when the pop-up comes up that says rebooting, under it you can see an error which says there is an invalid certificate. Okay, which I think is just great. It's like the last thing you see is comms error, no, this isn't right, format, yeah. Okay, so that's really cool. I've actually looked through the source code for it. Like, if you look at the Google wipe stuff, it pretty much turns off all the error checking stuff immediately and says, this is a high priority action. Obviously, if I'm wiping myself, there's something wrong. This is gonna happen. Okay, so I can understand why that's in there. It's so if something's gonna erase itself, it's gonna happen. So there we go. So if the server's using a self-signed certificate, you know, any self-signed shonky SSL certificate will work with it. So I'm not too sure. I haven't dug around in the SSL handling stuff in Android. You know, I know it's open source, but like I said, this is the certificate I generated. I'm, you know, not incredibly motivated once something works. So I'm not too sure. It just seems to me that Android doesn't really compare one self-signed certificate to another. It's like it's self-signed, it's shonky, whatevs. All right. If it's using a trusted, CA-signed, legit $17, you know, certificate, and really $17, just stop using self-signed stuff, please. You know, I'll sell you certificates. Yeah. All right. So it won't erase. It'll give you a comms error if you're using a trusted CA-signed certificate on your server. That all works fine. If you're using self-signed on iOS or trusted on iOS, you have exactly the same result. And that result is that it says cannot verify... actually, no, that's not what it says. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, cannot verify server identity, and there's a big blue button right there, which you can see, which says continue. And when you press that big blue button which says continue, your phone erases itself. And it's the big blue button. It's cannot verify server identity. Do you want to connect anyway? Cancel details, and the big one, continue. We did user testing on this as well. Okay, to be fair, we didn't do much user testing. It was just 20 random people walking around campus. They all just pressed the button. We handed them phones, said, check the email on this phone, please, and they all just clicked the button immediately. So I doubt that button's going to be much of a deterrent. I think this is probably a pretty big UI design issue. But also, if the certificates don't match, surely that's a condition where it's important enough that you'd say, just delete the account on the phone and recreate it. You know, don't let the user just mash a big button and throw all their security away and destroy things. It's a bad idea. Okay, and it's so CA signed, you know, legit or self-signed, doesn't matter on iOS, it's the same result. And I've got to say, like, you know, and I'm sure no one's going to be shocked and say historically Microsoft hasn't had a great rep when it comes to security, but stuff's been getting much, much better in recent years. And I'm really thrilled with the way Windows Phone did it. For a start, so if the server's using self-signed certificates, it was a lot of work to get Windows Phone even to connect to an Exchange server which didn't have a proper CA signed certificate. Like, you have to go into the local certificate store and run all this stuff and manually install it onto the phone. So they're making you work for your insecurity, and I think that's a good thing. And if you're using a trusted CA signed certificate, it's a lot less work to get your phone to connect, but it just, you know, comms error, no erasure. So Windows Phone did it right. You know, it's good, but it's also a bit disappointing. I'd love to say it worked on everything. You know. Oh well, it's good. All right, so yeah, that's the pics of the iOS one. It works. You know, I'll demo it later. It'll be fine. All right, so future work. Where do I want to take this? Right now, it's not a remote wipe bug. It's an SSL implementation issue. Okay, so there's a lot more that can be done with this, and a lot more that can come out of what I've done so far. So first of all, I've got sort of the compulsory open source software project. You know, with any of these talks, it's like, this is the open source software package I'm going to build, and I want to emulate or implement as much of the ActiveSync protocol I can into Python libraries. So you could have interacting with your mobile clients in new ways. This could be a piece of middleware to translate between two services. It could be, you know, useful for debugging and analyzing this sort of stuff. But this is something I really want to implement, and the spec's open enough that it should be doable. Hopefully there's no issues doing that, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so I'm going to try and put together a decent protocol library for ActiveSync. So this could lead to data theft. So if we implement all this stuff, there's the potential, you know, that we could get data back off phones. So there's remote backup functionality. There's definitely sync features into it. It's called ActiveSync. You know, you can get a phone to sync to you. It should be possible. I've looked through the spec. Everything seems to be there that we would need to get data back off if we talk about the stuff that actually lives in the mail client. So your calendar entries, your contacts, your you know, your email, all that sort of stuff. This should be quite easily doable. I want to see if we can extend it. Maybe there's some extra functionality which isn't quite documented in there. Maybe we can synchronize other files off the devices. Maybe the photos people have been taking. I don't know. But it's something I'm going to be looking at and going to be playing with. Ongoing access. So what else can we do to these phones? And I've seen a couple of options in the protocol spec to force a new outgoing mail server to be used. So we could potentially put ourselves in the middle of every outgoing message from a phone until someone notices that we've done that. But I'm wondering if there's more undocumented features in the protocol. Could we perhaps push a complete change of server to these devices? Could we say, hey, this is your new home, and you know, with a decent translation layer like this, maybe we become that guy permanently in the middle of every ActiveSync transaction between a phone and a server. Like I said, this is all theoretical. You know, I've done a little bit of playing. You know, this is the lofty goal. I have no idea whether that's going to be possible or not. Like, this is basically just going through every policy option and seeing if I can push something like this out there. And you know, it's a binary protocol, so it's not. Yeah, it's a lot of guesswork, and perhaps it'd be better just tearing down the Android client. But we'll have a look and figure that out. So some thoughts, and somewhere I'm also thinking about moving on from here. This piece of source code might be familiar to some of you. It's sort of surfaced about 2 or 3 years ago. You know, it made all the news sites, and it was like, Google have got a secret backdoor into your phone so they can erase everything if they want to. Okay, and that was what the article went around. And then later on it got clarified, and if people started to realize, oh, okay, this is if you're using Google Apps for Business to host your email, they've Exchange-like functionality, which includes the ability to remotely erase your phone. And that's what this code is for. However, if you have a look at the validation it does to make sure that that's coming from a legit place, and you can see the if, like 4 lines from the bottom. Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to cut it. I'm really not. Yeah, so this requires some investigation. I didn't have time to test this out before the talk, but I'm going to do that once I get home. And yeah, I think we can probably do something with that and implement the same sort of issue, and it'll just come down to SSL and shared secrets and whether they're doing that wrong as to whether that works or not. But it should be interesting, nonetheless. So in conclusion, and hopefully I've got no idea when I was supposed to finish, so maybe this is early, I don't know. I want to give out some thanks, to people who mostly aren't here. Brett Turner, the aforementioned Exchange admin, who told me it wouldn't work. Kiddis, McKnight and Adamson, the students who installed Exchange for me, because that was not happening. Sid for looking over my submissions and my code. Murray Brand for loaning me a pineapple. And the good people of IRC and the PhD student who had beers with me while I was making it all happen. So there we go. All right, thanks for listening to my talk. Thanks for coming along. It's been great. It's been a dream of mine to speak at this venue for a while, so I'm pretty thrilled to be here. There's my email, Twitter, websites up there, and like I said, I'll get a video recording of the wipe stuff happening in a more visible format. But if anyone's got any questions, I don't know what the process is. There's a microphone in the middle there. Maybe you just run up there and talk. Yeah. Thank you.